everybody, Victoria Honorato here again with Family Legal Action Foundation, where we are fighting to heal so many broken American families. Today's segment I'm going to touch on a little bit about a subject we haven't talked about yet, and I believe that there are thousands of families who are really affected by this situation with the kidnapping of our children. But before I get started, I'd like you to please write down the information right here. If you want to get in touch with me, or you want to participate or sponsor a family or be part of the organization to help these families to stop the brokenness that we are experiencing in our country, please contact me at the website, the Facebook page, or an email, familylegalaction@gmail.com. Tonight's story is going to be about a young dad who has lost his daughter 10 years ago. His name is Michael Sanchez, and he lives in Illinois. 10 years ago, he was awarded sole custody of his beautiful little daughter, Emily Machado. At the age of 2.5 years old, the mother, who was given visitation, took the child, crossed several states, and left the state of Illinois. Once she reached Arizona, she got onto a plane where tickets were bought by her family who live in Brazil, and she boarded the plane and exited the United States, at which time this child and the mother have resided in Brazil ever since. When this all started, Mr. Sanchez called all of the authorities possible and actually put out an alert for his daughter for kidnapping, got everybody involved, got the Amber Alert involved, which really was just a horrific act of itself, just trying to get the authorities to get involved and do the right things. Because it was a family law case, it seemed everyone was very hesitant about wanting to even help this dad. And it's not just about helping this dad and his daughter. It's about the hundreds of thousands of parents out there who have their children kidnapped constantly. I don't want to say it's on a daily basis because I don't believe the stats will really show that, but it is a very frequent and a very common act that is being committed against our children, American citizens. We now have this little girl, Emily, who is an American citizen who is in Brazil. And this father has never given up. Mike Sanchez has never given up searching for his daughter, trying to bring her home. We have what is called the Hague Treaty, or the Hague Act, I believe it's the Hague Act with Brazil, in which they're supposed to abide by the rules of the United States and help to bring that child back home because she is a United States citizen. But unfortunately, a lot of the times these go very ignored and untouched laws, and they are not enforced. They are not enforced. But when you think about it, how many years ago this happened? We had Reno, who actually enforced the military or SWAT teams to go in and steal a little alien, the Cuban little boy whose mom passed away and the father was still in Cuba. And he busted down the door in the middle of the night and took this child from his family who lives here in America, in Florida. They took this child at gunpoint and returned him to his father in Cuba. But yet we don't have that same kind of enforcement or help that would help this father, Michael Sanchez, and little Emily to be reunited as father and daughter, as a custodial parent who deserves to have his child back in the United States. We don't have anybody helping. He has gone to every source possible, governors, senators, U.S. reps. He has sat down with so many people. He has gone to the DOJ and to the state attorney, the district attorney. He's gone to the FBI. He has gone to anyone who has anything to do with children being kidnapped to other countries from the United States. And there are so many helpless people in this country, in the U.S., that do not get any help, the help that they should be getting to get their children back. There are other countries who are not holding up their end of the bargain to return American citizens back to this country. So in the meantime, as the years passed on, Mike decided that he was going to get money together, and I don't know if he did a GoFundMe page or he had fundraisers. He got the money together, and he ended up going to Brazil because it turned out like 6 years into it that was the only way he was going to see his child. So it was many years before he saw her, and he figured the only way he was going to do this was that he had to go to Brazil himself. And so he got on a plane and he went there and lost his job here. He gave up everything to go and see his daughter. Once he was there, it took several months for his daughter to even feel trusting to be with him. She was a little nervous and hesitant. I believe at that time she was probably about maybe 7 years old, because it had been many years, maybe 8. It has been many years since he had seen her. But how many parents lose their children when they're just young children, infants, toddlers? They don't even remember those parents. And the reunification is awful because you have a child that doesn't even remember this person who is very significant in their life because of the transition that children go through in their development stages, especially before 5 years old. Their memories really don't kick in for a lot of them and retain that information and those memories that they had. So Mr. Sanchez was up in Brazil for quite some time. And then he, in the interim of all of this, he went to the Brazilian authorities to see if he can get help, at which time he was told, well, we'll have to make some kind of a deal. And if you sign these papers, we'll allow you to come to Brazil and visit your daughter, but she's pretty much not going to go home to America. And then told him he needed to get an attorney there. It's just a bunch of garbage to just pass the buck and just railroad this guy into. He was so desperate, this dad, just so desperate that he wanted to be with his daughter and have some time and hopefully bring her back to the United States to be able to have visitation time here, because she had been there for so long. I think his wishes were really to try and really be able to spend some quality time with her and allow her to be able to see both parents and spend time. But what happened was, because the mother kidnapped the child, a warrant for her arrest is out. The parents of this mom are Brazilian citizens, and they have other children here in America, so they had a visa to come back and forth. But the last time that they were here, just before Emily was kidnapped, they overstayed their visa and had a 10-year punishment put on them, which just recently expired. So they really haven't been here in the last 10 years to visit any of their children here. What a sacrifice that must be, to give up all of your children's lives, your other children that you have, and all of your grandchildren, just to keep this one child from ever seeing her other parent ever again, knowing that the one daughter that you helped to escape and commit a crime by fleeing the United States with an American citizen child that she had no custody of, and you're harboring that criminal in another country. So you too are also a criminal for committing the act of buying the tickets to begin with to allow that child to be stolen and kidnapped out of the United States against court orders. Now that mother can never come to this country, the United States, again to see any of her siblings. None of her brothers or sisters or whoever she may have here, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, she won't be able to see them. She'll never physically be able to hug them or celebrate anything with them because she committed this act. Not only that, but she deprives her daughter of this father's family. Her daughter has another family that she has taken away. So not only is she destroying her own family by not seeing her brothers and sisters and keeping her parents from seeing their other children because she asked them to help her, but she's also destroying her daughter's life from ever knowing her biological father outside of FaceTime calls that he gets periodically. And of course now she's going to be 13 years old and he hasn't seen her for a couple of years now. And he's trying to raise money to get to Brazil again to see her, but I don't know if that's going to happen in time for her birthday, but he's trying. But he's trying to also get the message out there that parents who are in this predicament need to come together. We need to have these parents band together as a very unique group to come together and speak to whoever needs to be addressed as far as Congress goes, or our legislation, our senators, even on the state level. Right now, Mr. Sanchez is trying to get laws changed on the state level to help prevent these tragedies from happening by going one step further from an Amber Alert, but also trying to put out an alert that will be immediate at airports and bus terminals and other places. I mean, of course, it's not going to maybe help a lot with being in a car, but we do have the Amber Alert bulletin boards that are lit up. Of course, those won't happen, help on back roads and other things, but for the majority of it, we're going to have something hopefully in effect more progressive and proactive than waiting. He told he had a meeting recently with a senator, and in the meeting he explained how it took 6 months for the NCIC, and that's an all-around bulletin for all police agencies to be able to be aware that this child's been kidnapped. Just because it's a family custody case doesn't mean that it's any less than a kidnapping from a stranger. In fact, we've noticed that more and more of our kidnapping of our children is really domestic related, from family law courts and from custody battles that are going on. I would believe that our stats will show we have a majority of these cases are more from parents who are, and maybe extended family members who are actually taking these children more than they would be strangers. Not that it's any less that a stranger takes our children, absolutely not. But our biggest problem is that we have so much of this going on with the family members doing it. We have a caller who's calling in, please. Do you have a question?
Good evening, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth?
Can you hear me, Victoria?
I can hear you.
Hi, this is Paula. How you doing this evening?
I'm fine, Paula. How are you? What's your question, hon?
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that conversation with that young man, Elian Gonzalez, years and years ago.
Right.
I remember that story like it was yesterday. He was pushed along the shores of Florida from two little dolphins. The whole world was standing on edge that night when those coppers came to get that baby out of the closet. But things have changed from now since then. The Cuba's on our side, and that boy's a big boy now. I bet you any money he's an advocate to help children in and out of the United States. But as far as these illegal babies that are absolutely lost in space, literally lost in space, they had a story a couple of weeks ago where they had found a whole handful of them out in the middle of the desert somewhere.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, that
Absolutely.
was a terrible story, Victoria.
Absolutely. So, and it's coming out more and more.
Yeah. You are absolutely right. We do not have the protection from the government like we used to in the old days.
Oh, absolutely not.
To keep children and their parents. And I wonder how that ex-guest you had, John's, doing with his kids. I hope he's doing okay if you ever see him again. But we got to figure out something. Listen, I'm married 30 years. Victoria, me and my husband never had children. I don't know why, but we just never did. And we've been trying to adopt children for years. Honey, there's so much red tape, Victoria. You're lucky we got to buy a Maltese dog. It is ridiculous. They collect these children from all over the country. Years ago, back in the 60s and the 70s, I myself was in an orphanage, my sister and I. My mother and father died, and we stayed in an orphanage in California for 6 months till Uncle Joe came from Chicago to raise us. Back in the day, are you still there, Victoria?
I am, hon. I am. We're having
That's what they need to do. They need to create the orphanages again. This way, if a parent or a Spanish is looking for his child, they got somewhere to look for them. It's just a hell of a mess, and I hope with our coming up with our elections, we finally get a good governor, a good mayor to help the beautiful people and the kids of Chicago, sweetheart.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling in, Paul. I appreciate it.
Sweetheart. Stay safe, dear.
You too, honey. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. Good night.
Good night. And it absolutely goes back to what you said with Elliot. Elian Gonzalez. It just was a tragedy, and it's unacceptable, and it's absolutely unacceptable for any child to have that happen, but especially an American child, and we have no recourse to get our children back. We have, besides Michael Sanchez and his daughter Emily, we had another father, and I'm sure a lot of people saw it, where the mother took off to another country, and she took their child and they kidnapped them against the court orders and the father's will, and she went to this other country. She got married there, I believe, and she ended up passing away. She died somehow. I'm not sure if it was an illness or whatever. And by this point, the child, the little boy, the American child, was around 5 or 6 years old. And his father found out later that the mother had passed away, and so began his journey to fight to bring his son back home to America. In the meantime, the stepfather was fighting to keep the child in the country that they were in. And it took him nearly 2 years, I believe, and everything he owned and every resource, and a constant fight for all of that time to get his child back here to America. It finally happened, but it took a lot. It took everything that he had, and it took nearly 2 years of his life, as well as his son's life again. This stepfather had no rights to this child. He had no rights to this child. It wasn't his, and he had no rights to keep an American citizen in another country. And so these are the kinds of things that American parents are being faced with, and they have no recourse because everybody says, well, there's nothing we can do. Too much time has elapsed. What has been done since, they often ask Mr. Sanchez, what's been done since you've had your first Amber Alert and your first all of your materials that were out there, and all of your bulletins, and putting her basically on the back of a milk carton, showing that, even a bulletin board, that she was kidnapped. And of course, after a while, it all fades away. It becomes an old story. But that pain and that suffering of grieving for a living child that you may never see again, and how are you going to be in that child's life? It's heartbreaking because he speaks to his daughter on FaceTime, and you can see the alienation that's involved with it, which is really quite common with these children. Unfortunately, it's a combination of not only alienation but estrangement, because she is so far away. She's hundreds of thousands of miles away. And so she is now to a point, going on 13, that she tells her father she'd like to come to America and visit with him, but only if her mother and grandparents can come here. Well, that's not going to happen, because there's a criminal warrant out for the mother for the criminal act of kidnapping this child off of American soil. So I am going to reach out to everyone, any parents out there who are a victim of having their child kidnapped internationally. It is more widespread and more common than the American people really know. And a lot of it isn't even being publicized out there. We can't get the news media to cover it. We don't understand why. We have our politicians and our lawmakers that are saying, well, we already have laws on the books. What can we possibly do? We can't do anything more than what's already there. That's not true. That's not true, because the same thing goes for our gun laws. We already have gun laws in place, but yet you want to make more gun laws, which will never stop the shootings from happening, because you will always have this problem. So you're constantly wanting to add laws for guns, but you don't want to add laws to stop our children from being kidnapped from this country, from the United States. Why not? Why not? Are their lives that disposable to our lawmakers that it's just doesn't matter? That we'll forget about them in time, and then they'll age out, and then when they become a legal adult, they say there's nothing else they can do now. They're now legally an adult. They can do what they want. Well, how about all those years when they were kidnapped and taken away from their other parent and out of this country? They weren't given that choice. They weren't given those considerations. Not every effort was being made to help bring that child back. What about international talks with the dignitaries? What about all of that? What about our ambassadors for all of these countries that we should be going to and sitting down and talking to them about bringing these American children back home? Okay? There's got to be resolution to this, and there must be punishment for the crimes that are being committed. And we have parents going to jail here in America for the child support hustle. I can't afford to pay child support. You get to go to jail, Dad. It's so easy. It's so easy to put these parents here in America in jail because they're unable to take care of a child majority of the time. It's not that they don't want to. And don't get that confused with a deadbeat dad, because those who aren't able to take care of a child because they lost a job or they became ill or they're handicapped is not the same as willingly not wanting to take care of your child. They're two different things. So don't confuse the two, because a lot of the times these good, loving, fit parents, these dads and some moms get targeted because you have bad people who become deadbeat parents and just figure, I'm just going to bring a kid in the world, forget about it, I don't have to be responsible for it. Well, that's a pretty bad attitude. But for these parents who don't have a choice, these children who everybody is just kicking to the curb and not caring about, not enough is being done to bring these children back, these American children back to this country. You know, when we have a terrorist alert going down and we have problems in this country and the red alerts on for things that may be happening to Americans who are in other countries, the first thing that our president does or our dignitaries do, our lawmakers, anybody that's in control of this, will tell the American citizens, you need to leave that country and come home immediately. You are in danger. Your life is in grave danger. They have a choice. They're adults. They can get on a plane. They can get on a boat. They can come home. These children can't. They're being held hostage by those who have committed a crime. And those crimes must be dealt with. But they're not. There's not enough involvement. And we need to be putting out stricter guidelines. We put tariffs on people for doing very bad things to this country and the American people. Why aren't we doing the same kind of things for those who take children, American children, out of this country? You want to start finding our children who are, the amounts of reports, police reports we have for missing children, I would bet bottom dollar we'd be finding a whole lot of missing children who now are now legal adults and aren't even with those families that originally kidnapped them. And who knows what kind of life they have, even if they have a life at all, being in another country, being an American citizen. What has happened to their lives? Do we even care? Do we have any way to bring them back and reunite them with their families here? They have every right to know their family here. They're American citizens. And I think that every effort should be made. And I think that our news media has as a responsibility to help publicize any families who are going through this and any family who has had their children stolen, kidnapped by a disgruntled, hateful, vengeful, and evil other parent. We need to start making this very public. And we need to start publicizing it just like we do pedophiles. Being a pedophile is against the law. We have laws on the books to punish those who violate a child in that manner. We should also be punishing those who violate children in this manner as well and take them away from a loving, fit parent who is an American citizen. So we need to fight back, and I encourage everyone. I'm going to give you my information again. I ask you to please get in touch with me. My name is Victoria. Reach out to me on FamilyLegalActionFoundation.com or on Facebook, Family Legal Action Foundation, and my email is also there. Please write this information down. You can reach out to me. We can correspond. We can get a group going. We can get together in many different avenues. We can also get together through the foundation itself. We can form a group that way. But the only way that we're going to make a difference is we need to fight back as one. Thank you again for joining me this week. I look forward to our next meeting, and I hope all of you a very safe and blessed day. Take care, everybody.